Hey everybody, Omar here, your Edge of South Africa guy, coming at you with another knife video. We're going to do a little discussion on Chris Reeve knives. I did this video before. I don't think I really got my point across. I'm probably not going to get my point across again. But it does kind of help to try and do things, until you can get your point across. So, case in point, I kind of want to talk about Chris Reeve knives for a little bit, and why he's so significant in the world of knife making. Now, everybody that's familiar with custom knives, or at least the concept of a custom knife, probably ran across Chris Reeve somewhere in their knife collecting. Now, you either probably own one of his knives, or maybe you don't own one of his knives. But I mean, obviously, as the years go by, there's sort of a love-hate relationship with Chris Reeve, and I don't think anybody really can fathom why that is. I have a theory. Chris Reeve makes knives the way he wants to make them, and he doesn't change anything he does as far as his concept of knife making goes, not even for the sake of the customers. I mean, in other words, if the customers want to see something in his knives, he's probably not going to go ahead and make those changes. Case in point with the Sebenza 21. This is the large Sebenza 21. And there's a reason why I have these three knives out here. I'm going to get into that in a second, but let's just talk about the Chris Reeve Sebenza 21 for a moment. It's a very, very significant knife, not just in South Africa, but worldwide. I mean, this has pretty much become an iconic knife. The only change that's happened to this knife is that it's no longer called the Sebenza 21. It's now the 31, and he just basically changed the aesthetic. Instead of you seeing like two inlays, there's just one whole inlay on the front. Other than that, I believe he's probably changed the ceramic detent ball inside the knife since then. But other than that, he really doesn't do a whole lot to cater to the average layman that's into knives. He will pretty much stick with what he makes and hopes that you'll like it. Basically, because his philosophy of knife making is knives are a tool. I mean, most of us in general that have knives, we kind of like to just, look at the knife, the aesthetics, the artwork, flick it every once in a while. And that's even another thing. Chris Reeve's knives are not very flickable because his thumb studs have this sort of like mountain top, sort of very painful to flick out. I don't have a problem because I use my fingernail to flick them out, but most of us, if we were to do it the standard way, just having the skin of our thumb sort of pop that out, yeah, that actually hurts. I can't even do it. So that's one. Plus, Chris Reeve's knives, he doesn't do ball bearings. I don't know if you're familiar with his pivot system or his washer system, but Chris Reeve's washer system, his washers are built differently than other people's washers. Usually when you take apart knives and you take a look at a washer, it's just a flat, round, bronze washer. Plain and simple, but not Chris Reeve. Chris Reeve's washers are a little bit different. He actually has these little tiny holes, circular holes, all around the washer to hold the lube in, and that's sort of to make up for the fact that he doesn't do ball bearings, and it doesn't create the same smoothness as if it were on ball bearings. But what his knives do is it creates a hydraulic feel. So even the concept of smoothness is different than other knives, or even in the world of custom knife making. It's just a completely different concept entirely. And I think Chris Reeve wants to keep it that way. He wants to separate himself from everyone else, letting him know that he is creating an upscale tool that can be used day to day. It's not, And that's basically what his goal in mind is. And if he changes that criteria, then it's no longer what his philosophy of what a good knife is. So the reason these three knives are out here is to show you that there was only one time that Chris Reeve decided to make a change for the sake of the public, because somewhere right around like 2005, 2007, ball bearings really started to take off in the world of knife making. And Chris Reeve knew he had to step up his game and come up with something. And so he came up with the Inkosi, which is basically an iteration of the Sebenza 21, transitioning into the Sebenza 25, and then becoming the Inkosi. These are all three pretty much the same knife. So basically he was trying to get from this knife to this knife, and then this knife became the transition knife. So what's the difference? And I wish I could take these apart, but I can't. Well, the difference is the in the action mostly. On the Sebenza 21, which had been around for years and years and years and years, with the Sebenza 21, the washer system is kind of a little bit uneven, because on the show side, the washer on the show side is half the size of the washer on the frame lock side, because obviously to accommodate, I'll say that again. The washer system on the show side is actually actually twice the size of the size on the frame lock side, obviously to accommodate the frame lock, because you can't make a washer that's the same exact oval size of the show side, because the frame lock gets in the way. So he made the washer inside this knife much smaller, which causes the action to not be as great. And a lot of people kind of complained about that, but nevertheless he sold, obviously, the Sebenza 21. It didn't stop the Sebenza 21 from becoming an iconic knife. It still went on to become fairly an iconic knife, but nonetheless he realized that ball bearings were coming in. People like to be able to flip their knives. They wanted that nice smooth action that people really were not feeling with the Sebenza 21. So he decided to sort of rectify that, or come up with a concept that would be able to simulate the same exact feel as a ball bearing knife, and yet not actually add ball bearings to his knife. So he came out with this knife here. Now mine's kind of anodized, sort of like this golden blue. The original one is the same color as this Inkosi, which we'll get to in a minute. So he decided to go ahead and create the Sebenza 21. A couple of things he changed on it to make it more flickable. One of the things that he did was he made the washers the same exact size on both sides of the knife. And he created a ceramic detent ball, which made it made the action a little bit more friendlier with the washers being the same exact size. So that kind of helped with the action, because I mean, it doesn't exactly fall shut, but it's pretty much as smooth as you're ever gonna get it. See, I mean, you know, it's still pretty smooth knife overall. So that was to accommodate. So the way his washer system works is he just has two flat washers and holes surrounding punched holes inside the washer, if you can picture this, and then that's where you put the lube in there. And the reason the knife has holes is because you put the lube inside the holes, and the lube would stay in there, which would give it that same sort of smooth action, and you wouldn't have to oil the knife so much. You would just have that nice smooth action all the way through. So we go from a Sebenza 21 where we have uneven washers, right? Small washer on the back side, regular size washer on the front side, and what you get is this sort of snappy action, which does not fall shut. As you can see, you know, I actually have to close it like this. It doesn't, I mean, you can close it, you know, like try and flick it or close it, you know, like that way, and it will close, but it takes quite an amount of force in order to get it to close one-handed. Otherwise, you use your thumb or your finger, close the knife. And for a lot of people, that left a lot of them maybe a little bit unsatisfied, I think. So he moved over to the Sebenza 25, where the knife's action was, you know, a little bit better. A bit smoother in action, probably not as great as we all want it to be. So then he created the third iteration of this knife, and this was supposed to be the final knife, which is the Inkosi. Quite a few changes happened on the Inkosi. He decided to make this knife much more ergonomically designed. You know, because if you look at the Sebenza 21, this is just a straight knife, right? You only have one hole here for the index finger, and it's not really uncomfortable, but you just know that the ergonomics could be a little bit better, right? So we move over to the Sebenza 25, and he kind of rectified that by putting sort of these nice holes for the first and second finger, but it's still relatively flat. I mean, you know, as you guys can see. Then we move over to the Inkosi. Now it's a little bit more rounded in design. It fits the hand so much better. The finger grooves are much more ergonomically designed for the hand. There are no hot spots at all, so it feels even better. The washer system also was changed, but ironically enough, it didn't really change the action on the knife. It's pretty much the same as the Sebenza 25, but you can see in the knife the copper washers, they're oversized. Can you see that? See them? They're sticking out. Whereas on the 25, you can't barely even see them. And of course, in the 21, you can't see them at all. So that was the major change. He figured, well, more surface space for the knife to spread the, I guess, the lube inside the knife would give you more surface space, give it better action. And it, you know, it to me, it didn't really make, I don't think people found that the action was any different between this knife and this knife. However, the ergonomics improved on the Inkosi, which is the final iteration of this knife, the Sebenza 21. So, case in point, the Sebenza 21 was destined to become the Inkosi, which is kind of funny because why do they still have a Sebenza 21? You know what I mean? It's almost like Chris Reeves' statement, I'm giving you guys what you want, but I still believe that this is the superior knife, and I'm going to make this knife the #1 in my arsenal. And as a result, this knife is still the #1 bestseller. It's now called the Sebenza 31, obviously, but it's still the #1 seller in his lineup, as opposed to all the other ones. The Inkosi is still around, and of course, the Sebenza 25 is discontinued. It no longer exists. So this was the one time where Chris Reeve tried to make a jump or try to satisfy his market of customers, and I don't think he really did it, if you want to talk about it. I mean, I think it's great that he wound up with the Inkosi, but it didn't really satisfy the flickability that we were all wanting out of our knives. It didn't really change much. His thumb studs are still a little bit painful for a lot of people, and the attitudes about Chris Reeve, you know, it's still the same. You either love him or hate him. On the upside, Chris Reeve does have a lifetime warranty on all of his knives, provided that you don't do what I did to this knife, which is change the configuration of the knife in any way. I had mine anodized, so now I can no longer take this knife to Chris Reeve and have it anodized, or not anodized, but have it serviced. That's gone out the window. So this knife is now on its own, and I must go to outside sources to get it repaired or fixed or whatever. You know, that's just the way it is with Chris Reeve. So he really didn't do a lot of changes in his knife making. He still doesn't have very many models, unless there's an actual reason for him to change the way he does things. More than likely he's not. And of course now the company's now run by his son, who's now taken over the reins of Chris Reeve Knives. Things haven't really changed much. You know, he's keeping with the theme of the company, and I think that's a plus. You know, if it ain't broke, why fix it? But, you know, a lot of people's attitudes, it's either going to be a love-hate relationship with Chris Reeve, but yet he's still around. I mean, the guy's been making knives since 1974. His, you know, his factory's out there in Boise, Idaho. So, you know, the guy's just not going anywhere. He's going to keep on pumping out the same stuff over and over and over again. He's going to have his followers. I'm one of them. But on the upside, Chris Reeve's tolerances are probably the best of any that you'll ever find in any knives that are out there. And other custom knife makers pretty much will attest to that. I will say this: if you are looking to get into a very high-end knife, and you're thinking about pulling a trigger on the Chris Reeve lineup, no matter what you may read or see or hear, you will not be disappointed with Chris Reeve, with any Chris Reeve knife that you purchase. And I think that says a lot about the guy, because he's going to be around for a very long time. Nothing, I mean, this guy can do no wrong, you know what I mean? He can do no wrong. And I just wanted to make this video. I know it wasn't much of a discussion, but every once in a while I get a thought in my head, and I want to talk about Chris Reeve because he's such a misunderstood knife maker in many aspects. I mean, and the reason this happens is I was on Instagram, and a lot of people say, yeah, but he doesn't do ball bearings, and you know, his thumb studs are painful. I mean, you know, and they're not really looking at the whole picture. Okay, and when you buy a Chris Reeve knife, you're really not going to get Chris Reeve unless you experience Chris Reeve. Maybe that's the point of this whole video. And that's all I really want to say about this, you know, about this whole subject of Chris Reeve. And I'm probably going to keep coming back at you with this topic, because the Sebenza 21 really is a significant knife, whether you hate it or love it. You're not going to find anything better. Yeah, the knife costs $500, or in this case $550 with the you know, with the inlays, but what you're getting for the price, you've got a knife that's guaranteed for life. And if you've ever, even just getting the knife, if you've ever experienced his unboxing, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And you can go to on my channel and check out the unboxings that I did for my Sebenza 21s when I first got them. And of course for my 25 and my Nkosi, you can definitely go and check that out. Because the guy, it really has a lot of pride in what he does, and that's good enough for me. And it should be good enough for anyone else out there that's looking to get a high-end knife. So, that's it. That's all I've got to say. This is Omar, your Edge of South Africa guy. Just doing a little discussion on Chris Reeve knives and the attitude towards his knives, and what people think and feel regarding, you know, the love-hate relationship. And I think Chris Reeve is right where he needs to be, because as long as he exists, really great knives do exist, and a lot of people somewhere along the way, they're going to have to try and at least make sure their knives live up to this quality, because Chris Reeve can do no wrong. So that is it for this video. I will see you in the next video. Again, my next video I'm hoping will be in 2 weeks. It's going to be on Clyde Challenor knives once again, because I ordered a brand new custom Viper, and I can't wait for you guys to see that. I've got that coming, and also there's a surprise, because I had my original Viper serviced, and he did sort of a surprise for me. So I'll be talking about that surprise and the new Viper in my next video in the next couple of weeks. So other than that, I hope you found this video somewhat interesting. If not, you know, please put in your comments. I'd love to hear from you, whatever it is that you have to say. Again, my channel is out here for, you know, for fun, and of course, if you're interested in getting into high-end knives, and if you find any of the information in any of my videos useful, you know, I'm glad that you do. Other than that, I do this for fun. So again, this is Omar, your Edge of South Africa guy, coming at you, and I'll see you in the next couple of weeks. So check out Chris Reeve Knives. If you're at that point in your knife collecting where you don't know where to go, check him out. Yeah, you're going to spend a lot of money, but I guarantee you will not be disappointed. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time on Edge of South Africa.